All right, here we are again to talk Becoming Retail, our program that looks into the hearts and minds of retail executives. And, we really want to peel back and talk less about the machine and more about the people and what they think about leadership and what it takes to lead in these uncertain times, their journey throughout not only retail, but consumer goods as well, and a view on the future of the industry that we love so much. So today I'm joined by the CMO and EVP of Domino's, Art D'Elia. Welcome, Art. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Rob.
Well, good. Let's jump right in and let's start at the beginning. I know before you joined the retail and food service side, you spent a long time in consumer product goods. And before joining in 2018, places like Dannon, as an example. Can you talk a little bit about what attracted you to that space and, specifically marketing?
Yeah. So I did spend my entire career up until this point in consumer packaged goods. And probably a couple of things attracted me to the industry. One, I had learned that it was a good training ground. So I thought it was a great way to get my start in marketing and really learn the fundamentals of marketing on these fast-moving consumer goods, and thought it would be a great training ground. And then two, I always liked the idea of being able to walk in a grocery store and see the product that I worked on. So that was a big appeal to it as well.
That's great. I love the training aspect. I remember when I joined IBM as a strategy consultant, and one of the partners said, "So what MBA program did you go to?" And I said, I was in retail. I actually worked in a call center in this, but that was my MBA. So I love the training ground aspect. So you spent a lot of time, as we just talked about, on the supplier side of the extended supply chain, if you will. So I'd be super interested in what your view of digital transformation is. How do you define it for both CPG and how it relates to retail?
Yeah, I mean, certainly huge forces in both industries. One of the things that I've really enjoyed so far in the restaurant industry is in consumer packaged goods, the retailer ultimately owns the e-com data and owns the customer data, versus in the restaurant industry, on being a fully integrated ecosystem with our own e-com platforms, we own the data. And it has been a huge luxury to be able to have that data finally and not be reliant on the retailers. So been one of the things as a marketer that I've really enjoyed, and it just opens up so many more tools in your toolkit to be able to segment consumers and really do precision marketing in a way that is very difficult to do on the supplier side in consumer packaged goods.
Yeah, you're vertically integrated at the end of the day, and that data around the consumer is so important. You're right. You don't have that intermediary that so many other consumer product good companies do. So Domino's, everybody knows the brand. I know all my friends, my neighborhood is a big frequent purveyor, or at least shopper or user of Domino's. What attracted you?
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, certainly during these times too, and we'll get into that a little bit. But what attracted you to the brand personally?
Yeah, I mean, I have developed some expertise in food and beverage, like working in the food and beverage industry, but I like the idea of being able to stay in food and beverage, but do it in another industry. And it was a unique opportunity to leave consumer packaged goods, but not leave food and beverage. That was highly appealing to me, coupled with the fact, as you noted, Domino's has been on an incredible run for the last decade, and to be able to, help a business continue that incredible run was also highly appealing to me.
Yeah, so there's such a convergence, and you've alluded to this, between the CPG side and the retailer side, whether that's even restaurant, apparel, footwear, go around the different verticals. What did you learn, and what could you take away from your CPG experience that you can apply to the restaurant business?
I think a lot of things, right? I mean, marketing is still about understanding consumers and appealing to them. And I think, that's category agnostic. So, a lot of the fundamentals and training that we talked about before, I've been able to bring with me to the restaurant industry. And I think, particular from a marketing standpoint, one of the things that the CPG industry has become very good at is segmenting for growth. You look at how they've really been able to go deep in understanding consumers' needs, and through product and advertising, and I think the restaurant industry is probably a little bit farther behind CPG in that regard. So certainly, one of the learnings that I've taken from that industry and try to apply at Domino's.
Got it. So you've been on board for a couple of years now. You joined a company that was, an early adopter of digital and digital transformation before it became somewhat of a, I won't say overused, but certainly a term that people have embraced, digital transformation, that is. And your title of coming in was Chief Brand and Innovation Officer. So coming in with a long lineage at the company of transformation, how do you accelerate that? How do you take a company that's already bought into that movement and continue that amazing momentum?
Yeah, I mean, unique situation in the fact that, the company already had an unbelievable track record of digital innovation. And, the team that created that digital innovation was still here when I got here. So, there wasn't a need to, prioritize digital differently or change the approach because they had been so successful about it. And really, what I've been focused on is what you just alluded to, which was really trying to accelerate the pace of digital transformation and innovation. We're in a category in an industry that is rapidly evolving. We have a new set of competitors that we refer to as the aggregators. So these are Uber Eats and Grubhub and DoorDash. As a result of that, you have to evolve your business model. I think that has really been where my focus has been is how do we change more rapidly to make sure that we continue to be at the cutting edge of technology and digitization, but also, are continuing to be really customer centric in our approach because we want to make ordering pizza a better experience for customers, and digital innovation is played a large role in that and will continue to play a large role in that.
Yeah, you certainly were in a unique situation. I talked to so many executives in our space, and they're coming into a situation where there's somewhat of a convincing, or at least a new muscle, a new motion around digital and digital transformation. And you came one that was set up for even more success and not as much change management. But I really like what you talked about. You didn't sit still. You recognized the aggregators or these intermediaries where demand is being created, at the edge of your enterprise. Not everybody's just coming to you now. You have to push your brand to wherever the consumers are. So let's, if we could, hone a little bit more on innovation. And it's a topic we talk a lot about, but candidly, sometimes it's tough to define and even tougher to measure. So how do you, I know this is kind of a big ethereal question, but how do you define innovation?
Yeah. So I think, it's a great question, and you're right. A lot of people wrestle with this. I think, one of the things that has been key to our success in innovation at Domino's is being able to measure it, because it is really difficult, especially in our business model where we have an accountability to our franchisees. And, in my world, they're entrusting me with their dollars to make sure they're getting a return on that investment. So we need to be able to measure that for them and be able to come back to them with a business case. And, we talked about this before. The luxury that we have in our business is that we have the data. So we can measure very precisely the impact of these innovations. And that's critical, I think, in making sure you're innovating in the right way, excuse me. So that is key, is to establish, what the objectives of the innovation are up front. Is it to drive incremental orders? Is it to take cost out of the business? Is it to drive frequency with existing customers? And once you define those objectives, coming up with an action standard and measuring against it. And we try to be really disciplined in doing that analysis, and it's been crucial in the high hit rate that we've had on successfully launching a lot of innovations over the last decade.
A lot of innovation. So let's talk about that a little more then, if you don't mind, in terms of innovation. And I talked to a lot of different leaders, and they're innovative unto themselves, but they share it's part of the trick of how do we instill that in the broader organization? How do we give people the ability, right? Empower them to innovate. So maybe share how you parlay that and how it transcends the organization. Maybe you even have, given all the innovation that Domino's has experienced, maybe you can give an example of where an idea was hatched and how it came about and how, again, you were able to distill this down to the organization.
Yeah. I think you're right. One of the things that I also think has been a key ingredient to our success at Domino's is we don't innovate as a marketing function or IT function or an operations function. We innovate as a company. And it's a shared cross-functional responsibility on bringing that innovation to market. And a recent example of it is we just launched a new service method for our carryout business that we call Carside Delivery. And we accelerated the launch of that innovation because of the COVID crisis, and we wanted to give customers the opportunity who still wanted to come to our stores and pick up their pizza to not have to go into our stores. And with Carside Delivery, we bring the food out to them. And, many people externally probably view that as a marketing innovation. It's a way for us to provide this new option for consumers. But it really was a shared innovation that we worked on cross-functionally. That is the way, at least in our model, we've been able to really successfully innovate at a faster pace because we have that shared accountability across the enterprise.
Yeah, by the way, I think I've seen one or two commercials on that. So you're doing your job up here in the Boston area. And
Good.
I love it too, because I think of Domino's as delivery. And so to be able to reinforce that there are options as, sample size of one, I think that's a good idea. So, let's talk a little bit more about innovation and success. As we look at this programming of becoming retail, we're really honing in on a couple of measures, one from the customer and becoming customer centric, another one on innovation, and then the third on, because you can't ignore it, financial, right? And speaking of innovation, when we peel that back a little bit, we look at things like, hey, has it improved your reputation across your stakeholders, whether it's customers, employees, the press, right? Or has it improved your digital readiness? Can you move quickly? Are you agile enough as an organization? Or are you constantly and consistently creating new business models, products, and services? So you talked about, obviously, setting objectives, and Domino's has been really successful around innovation. As you were talking about, not something you just wake up one day and say, let's be innovative. It sounds like it's a core value. It's right in the ethos of your business. Do any of those measures, when you're thinking about that, come to mind? Or is it just, let's figure out, as you talked about before, what the customers are demanding and how do we solve that problem?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is different objectives that we look at for different innovations. But I would say, more times than not, the key objective that we're going after is traffic. When you're in the retail business, traffic, or more specifically in our business, orders, is crucial to driving sustainable same-store sales growth. And through my lens, we spend a lot of time as a leadership team focusing on how can we innovate to continue to drive order count. We really believe and have been very public about our belief in the fact that is what drives sustainable growth. It is really difficult in this business to drive sustainable growth on just getting customers to pay more each time that they come and driving your growth through ticket. So that's where a lot of our innovation is focused on. And when we talked a moment ago about measurement, it's really about understanding how that innovation is contributing to driving incremental orders. And that is a key focus area and will continue to be a key focus area for us.
Got it. And at the end of the day, that's very measurable, right? You know what the order looks like, how big it is, and how frequent. Since you have that consumer information too, a lot of preference information and shopping frequency.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of that came from your CPG. I'm sure it's instilled in the company to begin with, but you bring that from what CPG brands look at really closely from that perspective. So, as Chief Marketing Officer, you have a global remit, my understanding is. Can you talk a little bit about what opportunities excite you globally and what are some of the new challenges? I mean, obviously, we're living in a new world where there's a couple of converging crises happening, but whether it's in that context or beyond, what are you excited about and what are some new challenges?
Yeah, I would say I'll start with what I'm excited about. In particular, internationally, we have huge opportunity for growth. The pizza category in a lot of markets that we operate in is nowhere near as developed as it is in the U.S. So we have an opportunity to build the category in a lot of markets, and we've built up a lot of expertise and experience on digitally transforming businesses and moving into this off-premise model, which is clearly where the consumer is going. And I think the COVID crisis that we've all experienced over the last 6 months, I think has only accelerated that shift. So really excited to work in a lot of our international markets to help them on that journey and continue to grow the category in our business. The challenge, I think, for us and a lot of marketers right now is continued fragmentation, media fragmentation, consumer fragmentation, and just consumers have more choice and options now than they ever have before. And that has and will continue to present a challenge on, reaching consumers, giving them choice, but not creating a paradox of choice. That's one of the key challenges that we certainly have and a lot of marketers are facing today.
Yeah. So thank you. That is great to understand, and how you think about growth and how you think about the challenges. Again, sample size one, I'm a consumer, and for me, Domino's is fascinating because it's right out there in the market. I can embrace your technology from having your app on my phone to ordering a pizza via Twitter on an emoji, or seeing what you potentially could be doing with drone delivery. I mean, I think back, you were probably one of the first restaurants to have an app. You did last mile delivery before that was even a term. So as a marketer, how do you think about educating the consumers about this new innovation, and how do you think about, I'm guessing you measure adoption really closely as well?
Without question. So getting back to the metric we were talking about before, if consumers don't adopt it, then they're not going to order. So it is key to measure that. I think we stay very focused on making sure that we're trying to make people's ordering experience and pizza experience better, all the way from ordering through the actual delivery to the customer, that focus on making sure everything that we do is trying to make that experience better has served us well. And you talked a lot about how we have really adopted a lot of new technologies in the early stages and brought them to consumers. And a lot of the partners that we work with like using pizza because it's such a common experience for a lot of consumers that it makes some of these innovations a little bit less scary, right? Is I know how to order a pizza. I'm fine using this new technology to be able to order a pizza. So that focus has helped us, and we'll continue to do that. I think we want to continue to leverage innovation again to make the ordering and delivery process of a pizza even better than it is today.
It's interesting you say ease. I was talking to my neighbor right before this. Just he's a huge fan. He came from Minnesota and actually helped a lot of us get even more excited about it because he would always order in the neighborhood on Friday afternoons. And I asked him, why does he like Domino's? He said, it's easy, inexpensive, and good. So it sounds like you're doing your job, at least with the folks over here on the East Coast. I guess, if I think about the technologies, and like you said, you're oftentimes on the leading edge, what excites you? What emerging technology are you most excited about? It sounds like in your role, there's really a whole convergence of technology, marketing, and innovation. And as you talked about, it's a team sport, it sounds like, at Domino's and bringing these things to market. But what excites you in terms of some emerging technologies?
Yeah. One of the technologies I'm excited about is voice. We've always prided ourselves in taking friction out of the ordering process and making it easier for customers to order. You mentioned, one-click ordering before and some of the other things that we've done. And I think voice is one of those technologies that is going to make the ordering experience even easier and continue also to help us interact with customers throughout the process. We've become famous for our pizza tracker, and voice is another technology that can even enhance the tracker experience and really create transparency between us and the customer in that ordering and delivery process. So that's an area that I think there's going to be some great innovation in and should make people's pizza experience even better.
I agree. It's such an intuitive user interface. Makes a lot of sense. I want to go back to the comment around you're always thinking about how you make the experience easier. And I want to look at it through the COVID-19 lens. So you're constantly looking for ways, and then poof, overnight, we're in the situation we're in. What happens at Domino's? Are you now doubling down on some things that are already in motion? You just accelerate it? Are there discussions, and how do they come about, okay, we need to move into some new areas to make it easier and safer and more convenient? Can you talk a little bit about what I can only imagine, candidly, it's probably a little scrappy at the beginning, and then how does that move into kind of the scale type of environment?
Yeah. I think you touched on the key focus area for what we've tried to do this year, and it was all about safety. It was making sure that we implemented new operational procedures and leverage technology to protect our team members and make sure that customers were reassured that whether they wanted a pizza delivered or they wanted to pick up at one of our stores, they could do it safely. So that was really the key objective of everything that we did to transform the business quickly to put those new pieces in place. And, we were fortunate to be very well positioned for this, already having a very large digital business and a lot of things in place that we had been in theory preparing for this for years. But it was absolutely a focus on safety. That was the key objective.
Great. Hey, so I got one last question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot here, and we're asking all the leaders that we talk to about retail and their thought in this way. One word. What would be one word that you would use to describe the retail industry?
Yeah, good question. I would say focused. And why do I say focused? There certainly is a lot of critics of the retail industry out there. A lot of those critics have said the retail industry has been slow to transform. I think that is changing. And I think, even coming into the pandemic, retailers and the industry was becoming more focused. And what were they focusing on? I think they were getting back to being more customer-centric and consumer-centric in their thinking. And I think the industry had drifted a little bit and forgot that the customer was king for a while. And I think they've come back to really be more customer-centric in our thinking. And I think, you're seeing a lot more retailers out there really put the customer front and center and having some success as a result of that. So I think, the industry deserves some credit.
Great focus. I agree, by the way, Art, customer centricity is talked about a lot, but I think what the pandemic has done is forced us to focus on what problems we're solving. And they're evolving, right? They're probably a lot different than they were, not probably, they are a lot different than they were 8 months ago, and they'll probably continue to evolve. So you understanding the consumer, listening to them, understanding their needs and wants, and being able to move really quickly. And what sounds like such a innovative culture and one that's able to match what the consumers are looking for is quite fascinating. So I got to give you a big, big thank you for spending some time with us today, providing your perspectives and your journey throughout this extended supply chain on the consumer product side, all the way to the restaurant and retail side, and everywhere in between in your journey to becoming retail. So thank you so much.
Thank you.